Hey everyone. Today's video is titled Don't Ignore the Eisenhower Dollar. I know a lot of people don't really care for the Eisenhower Dollar, or maybe they have a little patience for the 40% silver ones. But I have to tell you, of the 40% silver and the proofs and the business strikes, my favorite are actually the business strikes. Now, a lot of you might know that this was really the last, big dollar coin that was made. It's the same size as the Morgan silver dollar and the Peace dollar, but it is not 90% silver. It's actually, it's kind of copper and nickel. They were made between 1971 and 1978, and the business strikes were made in Philadelphia and in Denver. San Francisco made the proofs, and they made the 40% silvers, which was like a cupro nickel core, I believe, with silver on top. I'm not sure of the exact formulation, but when it's all said and done, they were 40% silver, and they were distributed in special sets and whatnot. Now, if you're buying these things raw, a lot of people will probably pay $11, $12, $13 for the 40% silver. I think right about now, I think they're probably scrap value, probably about $10 and change, roughly. But like I said, they'll get a little premium of $1 or $2 on them, and maybe a little more if they come in the original fold envelope from the mint. The cameo, which most of them are cameo when they're graded, proof coins are very cool too. I personally am not I like the proofs. They look cool. I like the silver. The silver looks cool. It's silver, so that's nice. But the problem with those for me is that people bought them to save them. I kind of enjoy the business strikes because the business strikes were just kind of thrown out there for people to use. Now, a lot of them weren't used that much because people didn't like them because they were big, they were clunky, and they didn't have silver. I know that a lot of them were used in slot machines out in Vegas and whatnot, and I think a lot of the wear that you see on them is probably from that usage. A lot of other people just would get them and they think it was, oh, look at this cool thing. I just got an Eisenhower dollar, and they throw it in their drawer. So it wouldn't really circulate or anything. But those are really the ones I like the best. These I just picked up because it's kind of came back into my mind again because over the years I've had some graded Eisenhower dollars. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Eisenhower dollars can be quite valuable. Now, the ones that you see in front of you, the 5 ungraded ones, they're worth more than face value. Now, which is kind of funny because a few years ago, they were basically worth face value. Now, even if they got some wear on them, you could still get a little bit above face value. Not a tremendous amount, maybe $1.25, $1.50. But if they're in, let's say, MS60 condition, you can still probably get $3 or $4 for them in MS60. Now you get them professionally graded in a higher grade, and they'll do quite well. And with the Eisenhowers, the theory on them is that because they were so big and clunky and getting thrown around in bags and whatnot, that a lot of them got damaged. They got a lot of marks on them and gouges, and a lot of them don't grade very well. The one that you have in front of you on the PCGS holder is actually an MS66. Now that it's kind of funny because in MS66, that's worth $200. If you go up to an MS67, there are very, very, very few of them, and I think those are well over 1,000. Which is kind of the funny thing because if you look at the business strikes, and you look at them, in some of them in MS66 or 67, you have a 4-figure coin there. And then there are some interesting varieties, like with the 1972 Philadelphia coins. They actually have 3 types. There's type 1, 2, and 3. And if you actually look at the Earth over the eagle in the background, there are some islands south of Florida. And on the Type 2, for just a little while, they actually used a proof die. And it was a little different than the Type 1, and then the Type 3. It was refined with the Type 3. So that Type 2 can be worth quite a bit of money. Last time I checked in in 64, MS-64, I think it's worth a couple $100. And then in 65, it was worth like 400, maybe 450. And yeah, so 64 was worth a couple hundred. 65, it was worth like 400 or 500. And then in like 66 and 67, it's like thousands. So there's a lot of potential value in them, and it's really worth your while if you see, let's say, a 72 Eisenhower hanging around to check it out and see if they have the special, Type 2 background. And there's a lot of other interesting varieties. There's a lot going on with this set in the 8 years that it was made from 71 to 78. Between the three different mint marks, and then you had the Type 1s and Type 2s from a couple of years, especially with the bicentennials. You got the Type 1, 2, 3 from 72. Then you got the 40% silver, and then you got the proofs. There's surprisingly quite a bit going on with this very, very small set. So here's my advice to you. If you see these and you can pick them up at face value, I would always pick them up at face value, even if they're kind of dinged up a little bit and they're not much, because it's not like, if you can pay $1 for a $1 coin, I think it would only have upside. Worst case scenario, it's kind of a cool way to, save some cash. If you can buy the graded ones, I noticed that the price guide for graded Eisenhower's is a bit inflated. At least what I find. I can usually buy stuff for a much lower percentage of the price guide value than it really is. But it's definitely worth checking that out and, seeing if you can get a good deal on something, because I have found that over the last 8 or 9 years, the prices have risen. And I think that going forward, I think it'll rise more because there's still a lot of coin collectors out there. And I find that a lot of the people who are just into the metals kind of go off to the other side and also get some level of interest in the numismatic sides. So I think there's a lot of upside for these coins, especially since they're cheaper now than a lot of the other, dollar coins like the Morgans and the Peace dollars. They're starting to approach more than 50 years old, which is kind of adding a little more interest. And the big thing is, I think people are starting to realize that there's not that many of them at the higher grades. Dare I say, some of them are rare. Now, they're not, rare in absolute terms. I believe a lot of years they made with 30 to 50 million of them, which isn't, it's a healthy mintage, don't get me wrong, but, when you compare, the type of mintages we have nowadays, for, pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters, it's really not that much. And a lot of them just really weren't valued much when they were made and in the following years. So there's not many that are really saved in pristine condition and then got graded and then attained these really high grades. So if you can get, MS 65, 66, 67 in certain grades now, I think it's something that'll hold its value well, and maybe it'll appreciate in the future. That's kind of my hope with some of the ones I have. But the other thing with that is I just kind of have an affinity for the set. One of the reasons I have an affinity for it is because I enjoy history, and I had a very high opinion of Dwight Eisenhower. So I like the fact that they put him on the front, and you have the moon landing and wrapped up into that. And it's just a really cool set, something I enjoy immensely. So when I had an opportunity this weekend to buy a bunch of them for face value, I jumped at it. And the cool thing was, a lot of the ones that I put at face value, not all of them, but a lot of them were in AU, BU condition. Now, of course, BU condition, they were lower BU. They were like maybe 60, 61, 62. So those really wouldn't be worth getting graded because I checked all my 72s and there were no 72 Type 2s. But, they might be worth, $3 to $5 or $6 a piece in the condition they were in. But I did see a few of them that were really, really nice. They still had a lot of luster, not many contact marks. And I would say maybe about a half dozen or so might be candidates to be graded because I think they could probably hit at least an MS-65. In one or two cases, maybe a 66. So it's something to think about. So I just wanted to put this on the radar for you because if you kind of looked past the Eisenhower dollars and you were distracted by the peace dollars and the Morgan dollars, definitely give them another look. I think it's really worth checking out and just kind of seeing how cool the set is, especially if you look at those higher grades. And I guarantee you that you will be surprised by some of the population reports when you see how few are in existence at higher grades. It's really amazing, really amazing. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. I will talk to you later. Have a good one.